Good morning, Course 1 Math. It's Mr. Belke back. Hope you had a wonderful Easter vacation and are now ready to get started as we push forward to the end of the year. Today we're going to be starting with lesson 100, which is algebraic addition of integers. This is one of the more challenging lessons that you'll experience this year, so I need you to pay extra close attention. Let's jump into it. It's found on page 517 in your book. So if we're looking at the thermometer on page 517, when temperature goes up, we generally refer to that as a positive or a rise in temperature. So going up 5 degrees would be plus 5, and going down 5 degrees would be minus 5. So if I had a thermometer here, okay, and here is 0 degrees, and here, let's say the temperature went down 5 degrees. So if it went down 5 degrees, now we're at negative 5 degrees. If it went down another 5 degrees, now we're at negative 10 degrees. Okay? So what we're really showing is negative 5 plus negative 5. It dropped 5 degrees, and then I added another negative 5 degrees to it. Now I'm at negative 10 degrees. Negative 5 and negative 5 is negative 10. Okay? Keep that in mind as we transition into having one number positive. Let's say 8 is positive, and we're going to add negative 5 to that. One of the easiest ways to sort of visualize this is to draw a number line. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to put 0 here. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Goes on forever that direction, goes on forever that direction. Okay, so I'm starting at 0, and I'm going to positive 8. Okay, so I'm going all the way up to 8, right there. Okay, now I'm adding a negative 5. Now, just like we were dropping in temperature here, a negative 5 is going to go in this direction. Okay, so I'm going to head back this direction 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and you can see I wind up at a positive 3. Positive 8 plus negative 5 is positive 3. All right, let's take a look at one more. What if I have a negative 6 plus a positive 6? And I don't have to put the positive sign with it. If there's no negative sign, we're just assuming that it's positive then. Okay? So again, I would draw a number line. And this time I'm going to put 0 over here. 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7. Goes on forever that direction. Goes on forever in the other direction as well. All right, so I start at 0, and I'm going back 6. Back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now I'm going in a positive direction 6. So now I'm going this way 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And where did I wind up? That's 0. Negative 6 plus a positive 6 is 0, which brings us to our next concept, which is the opposites. Every number has an opposite. Okay, so if I look at a number line, this time I'm going to put 0 right in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. Okay, so if I got 0 here, this is 1. The opposite of 1 is negative 1. 2, the opposite of 2 is negative 2. 3, the opposite of 3 is negative 3. 4, the opposite, negative 4. And 5, the opposite is negative 5, and so on forever in both those directions. Okay, so every number has an opposite. And sometimes this is not referred to as negative, it's referred to as the opposite of. So the opposite of 1, the opposite of 2, the opposite of 3, and so on. Okay? Now, every number, if you add each number and their opposite, you wind up with 0. 1 plus -1 is 0. 2 and -2 net out to 0, just like 6 and -6 netted out to 0. Okay? That's important to remember because if every number added to its opposite is 0, instead of having a subtraction problem, we can simply add the opposite. Let's take a step back for a minute. If we look at example 5, the first one says, what is the opposite, letter A, what's the opposite of -7? Well, the opposite of -7 would be a +7. B, what's the opposite of 10? The opposite of +10 would be -10. Okay? So, let's take a look at what I was just mentioning, that every number plus its opposite equals 0, and therefore we can, instead of subtracting a number, we can add the opposite of that number. Let's take a problem like 10 minus 6. Okay? You all know 10 minus 6 equals 4, right? Now, what is the opposite of 6? The opposite of 6 is -6. So remember I said before I could add, instead of subtracting, I can add the opposite. Okay? So instead of subtracting 6, I'm going to add a -6. All right, now what does that equal? Well, if I did my number line, let's do that down here where I got a little bit of space. And I have, I'll put 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and it goes on forever that direction, goes on forever that direction. I'm going to start with 10. So I'll go from 0 all the way up to 10. And now I'm going to add a -6. So I'm going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm right here at 4. Okay, so 10 plus -6 is also 4. So subtracting is the same as adding the opposite. Now, let's put that into practice here. Let's look at example 7. Example 7, I have -3 minus a +5. -3 minus a +5. Okay? Instead of subtracting, we're going to make this easier by adding the opposite. Okay, so I still have -3, but instead of subtracting, I'm going to add, what's the opposite of +5? -5. Very good. And a -3 and a -5, 3 negatives and 5 more negatives gives me a total of 8 negatives. Okay? So, adding the opposite. What about one more? -10 minus a -6. Okay? So instead of subtracting, now I'm going to take -10 and I'm going to add the opposite. What's the opposite of -6? +6. Okay? So a -10 and a +6. Okay? Here I have 10 negatives, and here I have 6 positives. 10 negatives and 6 positives leave me with 4 negatives. All right? That's it for today. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to call, text, or email, or you can see me online between 9 and 10 o'clock tomorrow. Have a fantastic day. Until next time.